Anaya lived in a village where nothing ever changed. The same dusty roads, the same cracked walls, the same whispered judgments behind every door. She was 12 when she first heard it. Why does she ask so many questions? Girls don't need answers. They need husbands. Sunita, her cousin, would giggle loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "She's reading again," she'd shout, pointing to Anaya with eyes full of mockery. "Dr. Anaya, better cure her own stupidity first." The boys were crueler. Vikram and his gang waited by the well, tossing pebbles when she passed. "Go fetch water, doctor," they'd laugh. "You'll need it when the city spits you back." But Anaya didn't answer. Not once. She'd walk faster, gripping the corner of her torn scarf, eyes fixed on the path. Her silence was heavy, but inside, a storm brewed. At home, her father, Ramesh, returned each evening covered in cement dust. He barely spoke, but his hands, cracked and swollen, told her everything. "We don't get to dream, Anaya. We just survive." Her mother, Leela, tried to shield her, but even she flinched when neighbors talked. "Just be quiet, Beta. Don't make them angry." But Anaya couldn't stop dreaming. Late at night, she lay under the broken ceiling, staring at stars through gaps in the roof, and she whispered to herself, "One day, they'll see me. Or maybe I'll grow so far, they won't matter anymore." Mr. Iqbal's house was the only one with books. Real ones, bigger than the school's entire shelf. He was a retired teacher with faded glasses and a soft voice. People said he'd gone mad, living alone, speaking English to no one. But Anaya knocked on his door every Thursday. He never asked why she came. He just handed her another book and said, "Try this one. It's a bit harder." Then he'd smile, like he knew something no one else did. At night, Anaya read by candlelight, mouthing the words so softly, even the wind wouldn't hear her. Her father would sit by the window, silent, exhausted. He never asked what she read. But one evening, he left a tin of old batteries next to her dying flashlight. He never said a word. In school, Sunita rolled her eyes. "Reading again. You think that'll make you somebody?" Anaya just smiled. Maybe. But every day, the cracks in her world grew deeper. Her shoes tore at the toes. Her notebooks had more patches than pages. Her mother rationed candles so tightly that some nights she studied by moonlight alone. And yet, she kept going. One morning, Ramesh came home with cement in his beard, coughing harder than usual. Leela looked at Anaya and said softly, "Beta, stop this studying. What's the point? You won't be allowed to leave. It's better not to hope." But Anaya just shook her head. "It's too late. I already do." That night, with her fingers stained from the coal used to warm the house, Anaya traced one word across her wall. Become. It came in a yellowed envelope, smudged with dust. Mr. Iqbal handed it to her with trembling fingers. "You applied, didn't you?" he asked. Anaya nodded, heart pounding. It was a government scholarship for students from rural areas. One slot. Thousands applied. She'd mailed her form weeks ago, walking 10 kilometers barefoot to the nearest post office. She ripped it open with shaking hands. Accepted. Her hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes welled with something sharp and unfamiliar. Not joy, not disbelief. Something heavier, like a dam breaking. But joy doesn't last long in places like her village. When news spread, whispers turned venomous. She bribed someone. She'll come running back in a week. She'll shame the whole village. Sunita was the loudest. We'll see how long your fancy dreams last in the city. You're not like them. You're nothing. Vikram laughed, tossing a stone that grazed her ankle. Doctors don't come from mud. Even Leela, eyes swollen from crying, said, "We don't belong there, Anaya. What if they laugh at you?" Anaya didn't sleep that night. She stared at the scholarship letter under candlelight, her thumb tracing the seal until it blurred. But then she thought of Mr. Iqbal's quiet smile, her father's coal-stained hands, the word on her wall, become. So, she packed a bag with 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and all the silence she'd been saving for this moment. And without a single goodbye, Anaya walked toward a city that had never heard her name. Yet. The city didn't welcome her. It didn't notice her at all. Cars honked like angry machines. Buildings towered like strangers. People moved fast, eyes fixed ahead, like no one had time for anyone else. The first night, Anaya slept on a bench outside the dorms. They wouldn't let her in without paying the full year's fees. The scholarship would cover it, eventually, but not yet. By morning, her clothes smelled of concrete and fear. She hadn't eaten in almost a day, but she walked into the college gates anyway, clutching her acceptance letter like a passport to another planet. Lectures were in English. Fast, sharp English. She barely understood half the words. Her classmates came from private schools and polished lives. They wore clean uniforms. She wore one borrowed from a girl 2 years younger. They didn't laugh at her, not out loud. But they didn't speak to her either. She didn't exist. So she spoke to herself. She recorded lectures, replayed them at night. She scribbled translations in the margins. She skipped meals to afford internet at a public cafe once a week. The first time she passed an anatomy quiz, the professor said, "Surprising effort, Miss Anaya." She nodded quietly. But that night, in her tiny rented room, she cried for 20 straight minutes. Not from sadness, from survival. 7 years later, the village hadn't changed much. Same dust, same broken walls, same whispers. But this time, it was different. This time, Anaya stepped down from the bus, wearing a clean white coat. A stethoscope hung around her neck. Her hair was neatly braided, her eyes calm. At first, no one spoke. Children peeked from doorways. Women nudged each other. Vikram stood still, water pot in hand, frozen. Sunita's voice, now quieter, mumbled from behind a scarf. "She's really back?" She didn't visit anyone. She didn't say a word. She walked straight to her parents' house. Leela dropped the rolling pin when she saw her. Ramesh didn't cry. He never did. But when he touched her shoulder, his fingers trembled. The next morning, a line formed. Old men with aching knees, mothers with coughing babies, even Vikram's youngest brother, limping from a fall. No one said they were sorry. No one had to. They stood quietly, waiting outside her door. The same people who once laughed. Sunita was last, holding her own daughter. She wouldn't look Anaya in the eye. "Please," she whispered. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days." Anaya looked at the girl, pale, small, scared, just like she'd been. She opened the door wider. "Come in." And that was all. No revenge, no gloating, just silence. And the line that proved everything. That evening, Anaya stood outside the same house where she once traced the word "become" on a crumbling wall. The village was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when people finally realize they were wrong, but it's too late to undo it. She watched as children ran barefoot through the dust, just like she had. She saw mothers hush them gently, like Leela used to, and she realized she hadn't just come back as a doctor. She'd come back as a mirror. Every face that looked at her now saw what they could have been, what they once laughed at, what they now needed. She still said little,